Hey, welcome back to the Bronx Buzz. And right now we're going to talk about another aspect of transportation in the borough of the Bronx. And this is something that, goodness gracious, we have all dealt with. It's a matter of history. It's a 6.5 mile long roadway. It's the Cross Bronx Expressway. We all hate it. People of the Bronx know how to avoid it. People from out of town, they sit there for hours trying to get across it. But there's a big movement to try and do something. Emily Nadal from the Mott Haven Herald wrote about it. So nice to have you with us, Emily.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And Alexander Levine, who runs the Healthy Bronx podcast, but of particular interest, he's a third-year medical student at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So, Emily, let's just start with you. You wrote what I thought was a very interesting piece about the Cross Bronx. So before we even talk about the specifics, what was it that really interested you in saying, you know what, this is something we ought to take a look at?
So I had heard the term cap the Cross Bronx on social media, but I really...
Okay, well, let's be clear. Cap the Cross Bronx.
Yes, capping the Cross Bronx. And it was like a hashtag, right? Cap the Cross Bronx. And I was really confused about what that meant. And I really couldn't visualize it. And so I thought, if I can't visualize this or understand it, then there are probably other people who feel the same way. And so I really wanted to report and write an in-depth story about what this means and what it could mean for the Bronx, why people want to do this, and how this could be made a reality. So really, it was just curiosity.
Curiosity got you started, but then you did significant research, and the piece I would recommend, it's on both the Mott Haven Herald and the Hunts Point Express. What did you find? Is it now when we say cap, and I'm going to explain to people who aren't aware of it, it causes so much pollution and so much noise and so many problems in the Bronx. The thought is there are parts of it that could actually be covered over and make it like a tunnel instead of an open air expressway that spews fumes to everywhere. So did you get the sense, Emily, from your research that it's possible?
Yeah, definitely. So
in a word, yes.
Totally. It's not the first time something like this has happened, right? There are examples of highways being capped or deck parks being built on top of highways all over the country. So it definitely is possible. It's just a matter of convincing people that this is what we should do. The Cross Bronx Expressway is, well, we all know it gets very congested. It's a heavily used highway in the city. And so, when you tell people you want to build a park on top of it, people get worried. They think somehow, it's going to become even more congested. But it's really, of the 6.5 miles of the Cross Bronx, about a third of it, or 2.5 miles of it, are below the street level.
So you could actually put a roof on it. You could actually do that, and then of course deal with the air or the fumes or things that come out of it through ventilation systems, etc. Let's go to Alexander Levine. I guess somebody like you, a medical student in the Bronx, is interested in health. Talk to me about the Healthy Bronx podcast, and why a medical student would do something like that.
Sure. So thank you again for having me. I'll talk about the Healthy Bronx podcast in the context of capping the Cross Bronx Expressway. So in the last year, I founded this organization with other medical students called Bronx One Policy, and we're focused on, for the year, we're focused on looking at infrastructure and transportation projects that might impact health. And so on our podcast platform, we've done, though not all stories are about that, we've done a number of stories about infrastructure and planning projects in the Bronx that could have an impact on patients and the residents of our borough. And so that's why this story is particularly interesting to me, because there are major health implications, both from the fact that it was built and that it's been in the borough for so long, and also reimagining it can also have many impacts on health.
Talk to me about the reimagine that you have in your head, and say, if we could only what?
So I think one thing that Emily and I have learned over the past couple of months is that there's a lot of different voices in the community that have ideas for what this could be. And so it's not so much like what I think it might look like. It seems like if we believe this could be a health intervention, we really need to advocate for municipal, state, and federal funding and support to make this happen. And maybe, in the Bronx, we know that healthcare is the largest employer in the borough. So I think like healthcare professionals can also join the call to advocate for this. And then once that's done, there's an important planning process to ensure that what's done with that new space that's added is for the communities where they are. So whether that's a park, maybe that's public housing, maybe that's an urban farm. It could be many different things. But I think the sort of reimagination is not so much important from my perspective, but from we say it's the Cross Bronx Expressway because it goes from the east side of the Bronx all the way to the west side of the Bronx. And so the communities throughout those different areas look pretty different and probably want different things.
Maybe we're making an assumption that we shouldn't make, and you're the health professional in this little group that we have. What are the
pseudo health professional? Because I'm still in medical school.
That's true. Almost a health professional, I suppose. But listen, you're much farther along than I am. Let's just talk about what are the illnesses or the health problems that are caused by this massive expressway where trucks and cars sit there for literally hours just spewing fumes into the air. What has it done for the borough?
Yeah, so as you said, as it relates to trucks, the expressway is an interstate, right? It's like the interstate highway. If you're from the tri-state area and maybe you've been on like the Merritt Parkway, that doesn't allow trucks. The interstate highway system doesn't have those same limitations. So in a city like New York that has major congestion just because it's the most populous city in the United States, you're going to have at any given time of day, you might have 18-wheeler trucks idling. And we said there's these exposed portions of the highway. So there's, major fumes and exhaust from from
So I want to list asthma, other airborne diseases.
Yeah, so I'm getting there. So then
I just want to move it ahead so we have enough time.
All right. So then we think about chronic disease. So we're worried about asthma. We're worried about the way that pollution can affect a lot of different parts of your health. And then also, I think we want to think about chronic disease more generally as it relates to diabetes, hypertension, and how the highway affects people's ability to move and be more mobile.
I want to visualize. One of the things I like to do on our BronxNet programs is to visualize what it could be. Emily, let's see. 2 miles of the Cross Bronx are designated as below grade, meaning the traffic runs beneath the street. You could basically, the idea is you could literally cover that over and close it off so that it becomes a tunnel. And then the other side is you could do a raised deck. This is right out of your article, on top of the road to create another type of tunnel. And then maybe the implication is, imagine having a park or a walkway or some sort of greenway on top of all that. I vote yes. What do you think? Are these are real engineering feats that could be done?
Oh yeah, totally. So those 2.5 miles would obviously be the easiest to cap. Just as you said, it would only be a matter of sort of paving the top of it, putting the highway in a tunnel, and using a vent to filter out the air pollution away from that area. All things that have been done before. But the other 4 miles could also have raised deck parts on them too. It would take a little bit more work, right? Because those are areas that have a different terrain, and so it's a little bit more difficult. But that's not to say it's impossible. So once you have the cap, then you can build on top of it.
You can do anything you want. Yeah, that would be absolutely, talk about a life change. Of course, the thought of us in the Bronx thinking about the construction, I guess we're going to have to deal with that with the hopes of something in the end. Emily, do you have a price tag in your mind? We say we need $1 billion, we need $5 billion, we need $10 billion. What do you think? Or at this point, it's way too early to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's the big question on everyone's mind. Like, who's going to fund this? How much is it going to cost? And it's a little bit unclear right now if we're talking about, in the article, I talk about these different ideas and the different proposals. So there's the 1 acre, there's a 2.5, there's a whole 6.5. But really, the way that other folks have framed it is that the benefits of capping will outweigh the cost. Like when you do an economic benefit analysis, the costs that we're putting into treating these chronic illnesses that stem from these fumes and the pollution could all be mitigated by taking away the pollution instead of putting in more money.
So that rather than spending money in that direction, we'll spend it on this direction.
Exactly.
I mean, these are considerations to look at. And let's be clear, in which I learned from your article, it sounds a little bit futuristic, but in fact, it's been done in Seattle, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Denver. They've all done these kinds of things. Alexander, what's the next step? Number one, in general, and for you in doing this? You got about 30 seconds, and then we're going to give Emily 30 seconds as well.
I think the next step is really trying to push policymakers who have already stepped up to fight for this to get funding in the infrastructure bill. That's why this moment is so important, because we've heard at the federal level that there's going to be Biden is pushing for this infrastructure bill, and we have other policymakers that are really interested in things like the Green New Deal. And if this can be built into Green New Deal policy and the infrastructure bill, then this can actually happen.
And I suppose having a New Yorker as the majority leader in the Senate probably could not hurt as well. Emily, for you, do you expect to keep writing about it? I mean, where are you at in your coverage of this particular issue?
Yeah, echoing everything that Alex said about next steps, it all comes down to gaining support from the people who have the power to make this happen. But also on my end, I do want to continue following this story, because it's not going to happen without the continued community support. People from the Bronx, people who live in these areas,
right,
people who are directly affected by it, if they're not aware of what's going on and the process where their opinion and voice matters, then it won't get done.
I gotta cut you off because we do gotta go. But Emily, what you are doing and what you have done is the best example of why we need good young local journalists, because you've brought an important issue and put it out. And guess what? We need good young doctors as well who are thinking socially consciously. And so that's why Alexander Levine, we wish you good luck. And we'll have you back as we move on this particular dialogue. I will tell you that we're going to cover the same topic with different guests on Bronx Talk this week. I think it's a very important issue, and we're going to spend some time imagining a better way for that strip of land that traverses our entire borough. Thanks to our great producer, Rebecca Hemick. Christine and Jalen are our interns, and we'll see you then on Bronx Talk. We'll see you back here next week. Good night.